The rain fell in sheets across the city that Friday evening. Officer James Callahan sat in his patrol car, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. He'd been having a bad day, passed over for promotion again, his third time. The captain's word still rang in his ears. "You need to work on your community relations, Callahan." He snorted. 22 years on the force, and they wanted him to play nice. That wasn't how real policing worked. Not in his book, anyway. His radio crackled with the usual weekend chatter, but Callahan wasn't really listening. His attention had fixed on a silver BMW that had just rolled through a stop sign. He flipped on his lights and pulled out. Inside the BMW, Dr. Maya Johnson was ending a phone call with her brother. "I'll call you back," she said quickly, noticing the flashing lights behind her. She pulled over smoothly, already reaching for her license and registration. She'd been distracted, thinking about the big case she was preparing for Monday. As one of the city's most respected defense attorneys, Maya had built her reputation on civil rights cases, and this one was particularly important. Callahan approached the car with his hand resting on his holster, a habit he'd developed over the years. "License and registration," he said flatly, not bothering with a greeting. Maya handed over her documents. "I apologize for the rolling stop, officer. I was distracted for a moment." Callahan glanced at her license, then at her. Something changed in his expression. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." "May I ask why?" Maya kept her voice calm, though her heart had begun to race. She knew the drill. As a black woman and a defense attorney, she'd seen too many routine stops turn dangerous. "Just step out of the vehicle." His voice had hardened. Maya complied, moving slowly and deliberately. "Officer, I'm an attorney. I'd like to know what's happening here." "An attorney, huh?" Callahan's mouth twisted. "Well, counselor, I smell marijuana coming from your vehicle." Maya blinked in confusion. "That's impossible. I don't use drugs and no one smokes in my car." "Hands on the hood, please." "I'm going to search your vehicle." "I do not consent to a search," Maya stated clearly. "And there is no probable cause." Something dangerous flashed in Callahan's eyes. "Refusing an officer's orders? That's interference." Maya stood her ground. "I'm not interfering. I'm exercising my rights, and I'm informing you of the law." What happened next unfolded with frightening speed. Callahan called for backup, claiming Maya was being combative. When she tried to use her phone to record the interaction, he grabbed her wrist, twisting until she dropped it. The charges escalated from a minor traffic violation to resisting arrest and assaulting an officer, though the only marks on anyone were the bruises forming on Maya's wrists from the too tight handcuffs. At the station, Maya repeatedly asked to call her law firm. Each request was ignored. She was photographed, fingerprinted, and placed in a holding cell. Hours passed. The night shift came on. Officer Rosalie Chen, new to the force, noticed Maya sitting quietly in the cell. "Has she been processed yet?" she asked another officer. Callahan's "handling it" was the only response. Near midnight, Callahan returned with another officer. "Time to finish processing," he announced, opening the cell door. Maya stood up. "I've been here for hours without my phone call. That's a violation of my rights." Callahan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Always about rights with you people, isn't it?" The comment hung in the air, its meaning clear. Maya felt a chill run through her. "Standard procedure for anyone staying overnight," Callahan continued. "We need to check for lice and contraband in that hair." Maya's hand went instinctively to her hair, natural, shaped into a professional style she'd worn for years. "That's not standard procedure," she said. "I know the law." "In my station, I decide the procedures," Callahan replied. "Peterson, get the clippers." The other officer hesitated. "Callahan, maybe we should—" "Get the clippers," Callahan repeated, his voice leaving no room for argument. Maya backed up against the wall. "This is assault. You have no right." Resisting again, Callahan moved toward her. "Add that to her charges." What followed was a nightmare. Despite her protests, despite her clear statement of her rights, they forced her into a chair. Callahan switched off his body camera. Malfunctioning, he claimed. Officer Chen appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. What's going on? Just following procedure, Callahan said, as the clippers buzzed to life. You might want to learn something here, rookie. Chen's eyes widened, but she didn't leave. Instead, she quietly activated her own body camera. Maya closed her eyes as Callahan roughly ran the clippers over her head. Clumps of her hair fell to the floor. She kept her face still, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. In her mind, she was already documenting everything: the time, the violations, the witnesses. There, Callahan said finally, stepping back to admire his work. Now you look like you belong here. Maya opened her eyes and looked directly at him. You've made a mistake, she said quietly. A very serious one. Callahan just laughed. Save it for your public defender, counselor. He didn't know she'd already recognized Officer Chen, who had testified in one of her cases last year. He didn't know Chen was recording, and he certainly didn't know who Maya really was beyond her job as an attorney. After they left, Maya sat alone in the cell, her hand running over her now bare scalp. The humiliation was intended to break her spirit. Instead, it crystallized her resolve. Outside the cell, Officer Chen approached her supervisor. Sir, I need to report something. By morning, word had spread through the station. Someone had finally looked up Maya's record properly and discovered she wasn't just any attorney. The captain arrived early, his face grim when he saw the incident. Report and viewed Chen's footage. Meanwhile, across town, a judge was reviewing the weekend arrests. When he came to Maya's file, his eyebrows shot up. He immediately made a phone call. Back at the station, Maya was finally allowed her phone call. She dialed not her brother or her law firm, but another number entirely. Judge Williams? She said when the call connected. It's Maya Johnson. I won't be able to substitute for you in court on Monday after all. Something's happened, and I'll need to reschedule. She paused, listening. Yes, I'm actually calling. From the downtown precinct, I've been arrested. Another pause. No, that won't be necessary. I want this to go through proper channels. A final pause. Thank you. And Robert, save me a seat on the bench. I'll be there soon. She hung up as the captain himself came to her cell, keys in hand, an apology ready on his lips. The storm was just beginning. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Maya's apartment, highlighting dust particles floating in the air. She sat at her kitchen table, a cup of untouched tea growing cold beside her. Her fingers traced the unfamiliar contours of her scalp, still trying to process everything that had happened. The police captain had released her with profuse apologies, dropping all charges and offering to handle the matter internally. Maya had declined, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. This isn't going away, she had told him. Not this time. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing since she'd gotten home. Her law firm partners, civil rights organizations, and reporters had all somehow gotten wind of the incident. Maya had answered only one call, from her brother David. I'm coming over, he had said, his voice tight with anger. Now David sat across from her, his hands clenched into fists on the table. They can't get away with this, he said for perhaps the 10th time. That officer, what was his name? Callahan, Maya replied. James Callahan. He needs to lose his job. He needs to face charges. This is assault, Maya. It's a hate crime. Maya nodded slowly. It is, and he will face consequences. But I need to be strategic about this. David leaned forward. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about all the clients I've represented over the years. People who suffered much worse than I did, with no cameras recording, no law degree to protect them, no judge on speed dial. She took a deep breath. This isn't just about me. Her doorbell rang. It was Patricia Washington, the managing partner at Maya's firm and her mentor for the past decade. Patricia's gasp when Maya opened the door said everything words couldn't. Oh, Maya, she whispered, reaching out to touch Maya's shoulder. Come in, Maya said, leading her to the kitchen where David sat. Patricia set her briefcase on the table and pulled out a legal pad. I've already drafted a complaint. False arrest, excessive force, assault, civil rights violations. We can file first thing tomorrow. Thank you, Maya said, but I have a different approach in mind. She outlined her plan while Patricia took notes. By the time she finished, both Patricia and David were nodding. It's risky, Patricia warned, but it could change things in a way that a single lawsuit never could. Exactly, Maya said, but first I need evidence. Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and raised her eyebrows. Well, that's interesting timing. The police union just released a statement defending Officer Callahan. They're claiming he followed proper procedure for health and safety reasons. David snorted. Health and safety? That's their excuse for shaving a black woman's head? They're circling the wagons, Maya said, which means we need to move quickly. She reached for her laptop and pulled up her email. I need to contact Officer Chen. She's the one who recorded everything. Without her footage, it's just my word against Callahan's. Do you think she'll help? David asked. Going against another officer isn't easy. She already did the hard part by recording it, Maya replied. And I think she's one of the good ones. She testified honestly in that police brutality case last year, even though it hurt the department's case. While Maya drafted her email, Patricia made calls to trusted journalists and civil rights organizations. By evening, they had assembled a small but powerful team of allies. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt the vibration of the clippers against her skull, heard Callahan's satisfied laugh as her hair fell to the floor. Around 3 a.m., she got up and stood before the bathroom mirror. In the harsh fluorescent light, her shaved head made her look like a stranger. She ran her hand over it again, feeling the short stubble that remained. Then, with sudden determination, she opened a drawer and took out a razor and shaving cream. If they thought taking her hair would shame her, they were wrong. She would own this. By morning, her head was completely smooth, gleaming in the light. She dressed carefully in her best suit and headed to her law firm. The receptionist did a double take when Maya walked in, but quickly recovered. Everyone's waiting in the conference room, she said. Inside, a dozen of her colleagues fell silent as she entered. Maya straightened her shoulders and walked to the head of the table. Thank you all for coming, she began. As you can see, I had an unexpected encounter with the police department this weekend. There were murmurs of outrage and sympathy, but Maya held up her hand. What happened to me was wrong. It was illegal. It was racially motivated. And it happens every day to people who don't have our resources or connections. She paused, looking around the room. Today, we begin changing that. For the next hour, they strategized. By noon, they had a plan in place. Patricia would handle the civil case. 2 junior associates would gather evidence of Callahan's past misconduct. Rumors had circulated for years about his treatment of minorities. Another team would prepare for potential criminal charges. Maya's phone buzzed with a text. It was from Officer Chen. Got your email. I have the footage. Meeting place? Excuse me, Maya said to her colleagues. I need to take this. She arranged to meet Chen at a coffee shop near the courthouse. When she arrived, Chen was already there, fidgeting nervously with a paper napkin. Thank you for coming, Maya said. Sliding into the seat across from her, Chen looked up, her eyes widening at the sight of Maya's now completely shaved head. I'm so sorry about what happened, she said. I should have stopped it. You did something more important, Maya replied. You documented it. That was brave. Chen shook her head. Not brave enough. The department is already trying to control the narrative. They're saying it was standard procedure for hygiene reasons. And do you believe that? No, Chen said firmly. In my 2 years on the force, I've never seen that happen to anyone else. Maya leaned forward. Would you be willing to say that officially? Chen hesitated. The union rep came to see me this morning. Said I should keep quiet, that it would blow over. It won't blow over, Maya said. Not this time. I know, Chen sighed. That's why I brought this. She slid a small USB drive across the table. It's not just the footage from that night. I went back and pulled Callahan's arrest records for the past year. There's a pattern. Maya pocketed the drive. This could cost you your job. Maybe, Chen admitted. But I didn't become a cop to protect people like Callahan. I became a cop to protect people from people like Callahan. As Maya left the coffee shop, her phone rang. It was Judge Williams. Maya, he said without preamble. I've been hearing things. How are you? I'm ready to fight, she replied. Good. Because I've just been assigned the preliminary hearing for your complaint against the department. I'll be recusing myself, of course, given our relationship. But I wanted you to know something. What's that? Judge Hernandez will be taking over, and she's just as angry about this as I am. Maya smiled for the first time in days. Thank you for telling me. One more thing, Williams added. Your temporary appointment to the bench in Jackson County is still on the books, effective next month. Don't let this derail that. I won't, Maya promised. In fact, it's more important than ever now. That afternoon, Maya met with a reporter from the city's most respected newspaper. The woman listened intently as Maya told her story, taking careful notes. And you have proof? The reporter asked. I do, Maya confirmed. But this isn't just about exposing one bad officer. It's about changing a system that protects him. As she spoke, Maya felt a strange sense of calm settling over her. The humiliation and anger were still there, but they had transformed into something powerful, a clear sense of purpose. By evening, her story was breaking across local news outlets. Her phone was flooded with messages of support, not just from colleagues and friends, but from strangers who had faced similar treatment at the hands of police. Maya stood at her living room window, watching the city lights come on as darkness fell. Tomorrow would bring the next phase of her fight. The department would push back harder. Callahan and his supporters would try to discredit her, to paint her as an angry black woman with an agenda. Let them try, she thought. They had no idea who they were dealing with. In the reflection of the window, she caught sight of herself, her smooth head, her determined expression. They had tried to strip away her dignity. Instead, they had only revealed her strength. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when Maya arrived for the hearing. Cameras flashed as she climbed the stairs, her head still smooth and bare, her back straight. She had chosen not to wear a wig or scarf. Her appearance was now part of her testimony, a visible reminder of what had been done to her. Dr. Johnson, will you be representing yourself today? A reporter called out. No comment until after the hearing, Maya replied, her voice calm despite the flutter of anxiety in her stomach. Inside, the courthouse bustled with the usual morning activity. Maya nodded to several attorneys she knew, noting their double takes and quickly masked expressions of shock. The court officer at the security checkpoint recognized her immediately. Dr. Johnson, he said, his eyes widening at her appearance. Good to see you. Thank you, Louise, she replied, placing her briefcase on the scanner belt. As she made her way to courtroom 3, Maya spotted Officer Callahan standing with a group of uniformed officers and a man she recognized as the police union lawyer. Callahan's face was set in a stony expression, but she could see the surprise in his eyes when he noticed her. He clearly hadn't expected her to embrace her shaved head rather than hide it. Maya turned away without acknowledging him and entered the courtroom. Patricia was already there, arranging documents at the plaintiff's table. Ready? Patricia asked, as Maya sat down beside her. More than ready, Maya confirmed. The courtroom began to fill. Maya was touched to see several of her former clients slip into seats in the gallery, including people she had defended against excessive force charges. They had come to support her. David arrived with their elderly mother, who reached out to squeeze Maya's hand as she passed. My beautiful daughter, her mother whispered fiercely. Show them who you are. At exactly 9:00, the bailiff called the court to order. All rise for the Honorable Judge Hernandez. Everyone stood as the door to the judge's chambers opened. But instead of Judge Hernandez, a court clerk emerged. Ladies and gentlemen, the clerk announced, Judge Hernandez has been called away for an emergency. Judge Williams has assigned a substitute judge for today's proceedings. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Maya exchanged a glance with Patricia, who shrugged slightly. This was unexpected. The clerk continued, "Court will resume in 15 minutes when the substitute judge arrives." As they waited, Maya reviewed her notes one last time. The case was straightforward. She was suing the police department, the city, and Officer Callahan personally for violations of her civil rights, assault, false arrest, and excessive force. The evidence was strong, including Officer Chen's video footage and testimony from other officers who had witnessed Callahan's pattern of behavior. The defense's strategy, based on their filed responses, would be to claim that Callahan had followed proper procedure for health and safety reasons. They would try to paint Maya as combative during her arrest and argue that she was using the incident to advance a political agenda against the police. It was a weak defense, especially given the evidence, but Maya knew from experience that cases like this were rarely decided purely on legal merits. Public perception, political pressure, and deeply ingrained deference to police authority would all play a role. At 9:15 sharp, the bailiff again called the court to order. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Adeyemi." Maya froze. Judge Adeyemi. She hadn't expected this. She turned to Patricia, whose expression mirrored her own surprise. The door to the judge's chambers opened, and Maya watched as the court reacted to the entrance of the substitute judge. Confusion, then recognition rippled through the gallery. Judge Taiwo Adeyemi was relatively new to the bench, having been appointed to the district court in Jackson County just 6 months ago. He was known for his meticulous attention to detail and strict adherence to procedural rules. Maya had appeared before him several times in her capacity as an attorney, always finding him fair but demanding. But that wasn't why the courtroom was buzzing with whispers. The reason was simple. Judge Adeyemi was Maya's former law professor and mentor. He had recommended her for her own upcoming judicial appointment. Maya watched Callahan's face as he made the connection. The color drained from his cheeks. The police union lawyer quickly rose to his feet. "Your Honor, the defense requests a sidebar." Judge Adeyemi nodded. Counsel for both sides approached the bench. Maya and Patricia walked forward, as did the defense team. Once they were gathered before the bench, the police union lawyer spoke in a low, urgent tone. "Your Honor, we must request that you recuse yourself from this case. Given your prior relationship with the plaintiff," Judge Adeyemi cut him off. "Counselor, I'm well aware of the ethical considerations. I was assigned this case specifically because Judge Williams and Judge Hernandez both have more direct connections to Dr. Johnson than I do. I taught her in law school over 15 years ago, and our professional paths have crossed occasionally since then. That does not constitute a conflict of interest that would prevent me from ruling fairly. But Your Honor, however, Judge Adeyemi continued, in the interest of complete transparency, I will disclose this prior relationship to the full court and ask if there are any objections." The lawyer looked like he wanted to say more, but instead nodded stiffly. When they returned to their tables, Judge Adeyemi addressed the courtroom. "Before we proceed, I wish to disclose that I have a prior professional relationship with the plaintiff, Dr. Johnson. I served as her professor at the law school 15 years ago. If either party believes this constitutes a conflict of interest, they may raise an objection now." The police union lawyer stood again. "Your Honor, given the nature of this case and the public attention it has received, the defense believes the appearance of complete impartiality is crucial. We respectfully request that you recuse yourself." Judge Adeyemi nodded. "Your objection is noted. However, under the Judicial Code of Conduct, my prior role as Dr. Johnson's professor does not automatically disqualify me from presiding over this case. There is no personal bias or prejudice concerning either party, and no financial or other interest in the outcome." He turned to Maya and Patricia. "Does the plaintiff have any position on this matter?" Patricia stood. "Your Honor, the plaintiff has no objection to your presiding over this hearing." "Very well," Judge Adeyemi said. "The defense's request for recusal is denied. We will proceed with today's hearing." He looked at his notes. "This is a preliminary hearing to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to move forward with Dr. Johnson's civil claims against the defendants. Is the plaintiff ready to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor," Patricia replied. And the defense? The police union lawyer hesitated, then said, Yes, Your Honor. Good. Opening statements, please. Plaintiff first. Patricia rose and began laying out Maya's case, her voice clear and confident. She described the traffic stop, the escalation, and the degrading treatment Maya had received at the police station. When she reached the part about the forced head shaving, Patricia paused. Your Honor, the plaintiff has chosen not to cover her head today because she wants the court to see the physical result of Officer Callahan's actions. This was not about safety or procedure. This was about humiliation and power. As Patricia continued, Maya glanced around the courtroom. The gallery was utterly silent, all eyes fixed on either Patricia or Maya herself. She could feel the weight of their attention, their shock, their sympathy. Her gaze landed on Officer Chen, who sat rigid in the third row, her face pale but determined. Beside her were two other officers Maya didn't recognize. Witnesses for her case, perhaps? People with their own stories about Callahan? When Patricia finished, the defense lawyer rose. His opening statement was brief and defensive, focusing on Callahan's long service record and the difficult split-second decisions officers must make daily. He barely addressed the head-shaving incident, referring to it only as standard hygiene procedures that may have been implemented with less sensitivity than ideal. Judge Adeyemi listened impassively, taking occasional notes. When both sides had finished their opening statements, he looked up. Before we proceed to evidence, I'd like to view the video footage that has been submitted as Exhibit A. The bailiff set up a screen and dimmed the lights. Maya steeled herself, knowing what was coming. She had watched Officer Chen's body camera footage multiple times while preparing the case, but it was still difficult to see herself in that vulnerable position, to hear Callahan's casual cruelty as he violated her dignity. The courtroom was silent as the video played. Maya kept her eyes forward, refusing to show any reaction. When it ended, there was a long pause before Judge Adeyemi spoke. Thank you. We'll take a 15-minute recess and then proceed with witness testimony. As people began to move and talk, Maya felt a hand on her shoulder. It was her mother. You're doing just fine, she whispered. Hold your head high. Maya nodded, drawing strength from her mother's presence. As she stood to stretch her legs during the recess, she noticed Callahan in deep conversation with his lawyer, their expressions tense. He looked up and met her eyes, for a brief moment before quickly looking away. He knows he's in trouble, Maya thought. He finally understands who I am. When court resumed, Officer Chen was the first witness called. She testified clearly about what she had witnessed that night, her voice shaking slightly but growing stronger as she continued. She confirmed that in her 2 years on the force, she had never seen any other arrestee subjected to having their head shaved, regardless of hair type or length. And did Officer Callahan give any reason for this action? Patricia asked. He said it was for health and safety, Chen replied. But there's no department policy that requires or even suggests such a measure. The cross-examination was aggressive, with the defense lawyer implying that Chen was testifying against a fellow officer out of personal dislike or political motivations. Chen remained composed. I'm testifying because what I saw was wrong, she said simply. That's not why I joined the force. 2 more officers testified, both describing incidents where they had witnessed Callahan using excessive force against black suspects. Their testimonies painted a picture of a pattern of behavior that the department had repeatedly overlooked or excused. As the day wore on, Maya felt a growing sense of cautious optimism. The evidence was strong, the testimony compelling. Judge Adeyemi asked thoughtful, probing questions of each witness, showing neither favoritism nor bias toward either side. By late afternoon, it was clear that this preliminary hearing would extend to a second day. Judge Adeyemi called both legal teams to the bench. We'll continue tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., he said. I expect we'll conclude witness testimony before lunch with closing arguments to follow. I'll rule on whether there's sufficient evidence to proceed to trial by the end of the day. As the court adjourned, Maya gathered her notes. Tomorrow would be her turn to testify, to tell her story in her own words. It would be difficult, but she was ready. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with questions, but Maya only gave a brief statement. "Today was just the beginning," she said. "Justice moves slowly, but it does move. That's what I believe." As she walked down the courthouse steps with her family and legal team, Maya felt people watching her, not with pity, as Callahan had intended, but with respect. Her shaved head wasn't a mark of shame. It was a testament to her strength and a visible symbol of what she was fighting against. The battle was far from over, but today had been a good start. The second day of the hearing dawned bright and clear. Maya had barely slept, going over her testimony again and again in her mind. This wasn't her first time on a witness stand, but it was certainly the most personal. She arrived at the courthouse earlier than necessary, needing a moment of quiet before the day began. The hallways were still mostly empty, the morning sunlight streaming through the tall windows and creating patterns on the marble floor. Maya found herself standing before the wall of judges, a long corridor where portraits of every judge who had served in the county hung in chronological order. She studied the faces, noting the slow progression from only white men to a gradually more diverse group. Near the end of the wall were empty spaces, waiting for new appointees. "One of those is for you," said a voice behind her. Maya turned to find Judge Williams approaching. He nodded toward the empty frames. "Your confirmation hearing is next week," he continued. "The paperwork is already being processed for Jackson County." "I know," Maya replied. "Though I've been wondering if this case might complicate things." Judge Williams shook his head. "If anything, it makes your appointment more important. We need judges who understand what justice really means." He glanced at his watch. "I should go. Judge Adeyemi doesn't like delays. Good luck today, Maya." By the time Maya entered courtroom 3, it was even more crowded than the day before. Word had spread about the powerful testimony and the video evidence. People stood along the back wall, and the press section was packed. Patricia was waiting at their table, reviewing notes. "Ready?" she asked as Maya sat down. "As I'll ever be," Maya replied. Officer Callahan was standing near the exit with his lawyer and several other officers. As Maya approached, a path cleared between them. For a moment, they stood facing each other, Maya with her bare head held high, Callahan with his face ashen. "Dr. Johnson," he said stiffly, his lawyer clearly having advised him to show respect. Maya looked at him, seeing not just the man who had humiliated her, but a symbol of a system that had allowed such abuses to go unchecked for too long. "Officer Callahan," she replied evenly. "I'll see you in court." She walked past him and out into the bright afternoon sunlight, where cameras flashed and reporters called her name. Tomorrow she would take her place on the bench, not as a victim, seeking justice, but as someone empowered to ensure that justice was available to all. The confirmation hearing was brief and ceremonial. Maya sat before the Judiciary Committee, answering their questions with the same composure she had shown in court. Though no one directly mentioned the incident with Officer Callahan, it hung in the air, an unspoken acknowledgement that her experience had given her a perspective few other judicial candidates possessed. "Dr. Johnson," said the committee chairwoman, "your legal credentials are impeccable. Your commitment to equal justice under the law is evident in your career. But I'd like to ask you something more personal. What does justice mean to you?" Maya considered the question carefully. Justice isn't just about applying the law correctly, though that's certainly part of it. True justice requires seeing the humanity in every person who enters a courtroom, regardless of their background, their appearance, or the circumstances that brought them there. It means ensuring that the powerful are held to the same standards as the powerless. And sometimes it means having the courage to acknowledge when the system itself has failed. The chairwoman nodded, satisfied. "Thank you, Dr. Johnson." The vote was unanimous. By noon, Maya had been confirmed as the newest judge of the Jackson County District Court. The swearing-in ceremony was scheduled for the following Monday. As she left the Capitol building, reporters crowded around her. "Judge Johnson, how does it feel to go from having your rights violated to being in a position to protect others' rights?" Will you be able to remain impartial in cases involving police officers? Do you see your appointment as a rebuke to Officer Callahan and the department? Maya held up her hand. I'll take just one question today. The reporters fell silent, waiting. I don't see my appointment as a rebuke to anyone, Maya said carefully. I see it as an affirmation of something I've always believed, that our justice system, despite its flaws, can evolve and improve. I'm honored to be part of that process. She declined to answer any more questions, making her way to the car where David waited. Congratulations, Your Honor, he said with a grin as she got in. Don't start with that, Maya laughed, the tension of the past few days finally easing a bit. Mom's planning a celebration dinner tonight, David told her as they drove, away from the capital. Just family. She says you need rest before Monday. Maya nodded, grateful for her mother's understanding. The media attention had been exhausting, and it showed no signs of abating. Her story had gone national, with opinion pieces debating everything, from police reform to the significance of Black women's hair in professional settings. That evening, as her family celebrated around her mother's dining table, Maya's phone rang. It was Patricia. Sorry to interrupt your evening, Patricia said when Maya stepped away to answer, but I thought you'd want to know. The district attorney just announced that they're filing criminal charges against Callahan. Assault, battery, deprivation of rights under color of law. They're taking it seriously. That's good news, Maya replied, though I'm guessing the police union will fight it every step of the way. No doubt. But there's more. 3 other people have come forward with similar stories about Callahan. All Black women, all subjected to degrading treatment during arrests. None as extreme as your case, but definitely part of a pattern. We're adding them to the civil suit. Have you been assigned a new judge yet? Judge Rosario. She's fair by the book. It's a good assignment. After they hung up, Maya rejoined her family, sharing the news about the criminal charges. Her mother nodded approvingly. It's a start, she said. But there's a long way to go. Monday. Morning arrived with a flurry of activity. Maya chose her outfit carefully, a tailored suit in deep blue, no head covering. Her hair had begun to grow back, a short fuzz covering her scalp. She had considered keeping it shaved as a reminder, but decided against it. She didn't need a physical reminder of what had happened. The experience was now part of who she was. The courtroom was packed for her swearing-in ceremony. Friends, colleagues, former clients, and a large media contingent filled the gallery. Judge Williams would administer the oath. As Maya placed her hand on the Bible and repeated the solemn words, she felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a personal achievement. It was a testament to resilience and opportunity to effect real change from within the system. And I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office, so help me God. Congratulations, Judge Johnson, Judge Williams said, shaking her hand as applause filled the courtroom. The reception that followed was brief, as Maya was eager to begin her official duties. Her first day's docket was light, a deliberate scheduling choice to allow her to settle into her new role. As she donned the black robe and prepared to enter her courtroom for the first time as a judge, Maya paused before the mirror in her chambers. The woman who looked back at her was changed from the one who had been humiliated in a police station less than 2 weeks ago. There was a new gravity in her expression, a deeper understanding in her eyes. Her clerk knocked on the door. Ready? Judge Johnson, your first case is waiting. Maya nodded. I'm ready. Over the next few months, Maya settled into her new role while her civil case against Callahan and the department proceeded under Judge Rosario's careful oversight. The criminal case moved forward as well, though more slowly, delayed by procedural motions from Callahan's defense team. Maya recused herself from any cases involving Officer Callahan or any of the officers who had been present that night at the station. But she didn't shy away from other cases involving law enforcement, earning a reputation for fairness combined with a meticulous attention to civil rights concerns. 4 months after her appointment, Maya received a call from Patricia with news about their civil case. They want to settle, Patricia said without preamble. The city, the department, all of them. They're offering a substantial sum in policy changes. What kind of policy changes? Maya asked, her interest piqued. Mandatory body cameras that can't be turned off during any civilian interaction, new training protocols specifically addressing racial bias, and a civilian oversight board with actual teeth, the power to recommend termination for officers with pattern behavior problems. Maya considered this. And what about public acknowledgement of wrongdoing? That's where they're balking. They'll admit to procedural failures, but not to racial targeting or abuse. Then no deal, Maya said firmly. This isn't about money. It's about truth and accountability. A week later, the city's representatives met with Patricia again. This time, their offer included a public statement acknowledging that Maya's treatment had been discriminatory, degrading, and unjustified, and that the department had failed to address a pattern of similar behavior by certain officers. Better, Maya said when Patricia called with the update. But I want one more thing. What's that? A victims fund. Take half of the settlement money and establish a fund for others who have experienced similar treatment but don't have the resources to fight it in court. The final settlement, announced 6 months after the incident, included everything Maya had asked for. At the press conference, the mayor and police chief stood uncomfortably before the cameras, reading the carefully worded statement of acknowledgement. Maya stood nearby, her hair now grown into a short, natural style that suited her. When it was her turn to speak, Maya stepped to the microphone. This settlement represents progress, but it's just one step. Real change doesn't come from lawsuits or settlements. It comes from a fundamental shift in how we view justice and dignity in our society. She paused, looking out at the crowd of reporters. Today, I'm announcing the establishment of the Dignity First Legal Fund, which will provide resources and representation for people whose rights have been violated by those sworn to protect them. The criminal case against Officer Callahan concluded 3 months later with a guilty verdict on all counts. The judge, a conservative who had initially seemed sympathetic to the defense, sentenced him to 5 years, with possibility of parole after 3. As Callahan was led from the courtroom, in handcuffs he glanced up at the gallery where Maya sat observing. Their eyes met briefly. Maya felt no triumph, no vindication, only a somber acknowledgement that justice, however imperfect, had been served. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked for her reaction to the verdict. The system worked as it should today, Maya said simply. That's all any of us can ask for. 1 year to the day after the incident, Maya sat in her chambers, reviewing cases for the next day's docket. Her hair had grown out into a style she liked, short, natural, professional. She rarely thought about the trauma of that night anymore, though occasionally she still woke from dreams where she felt the buzz of the clippers against her scalp. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was her clerk. Judge Johnson, there's someone here to see you. Officer Chen. Maya looked up in surprise. Send her in. Rosalie Chen entered, no longer in uniform. She looked more relaxed than Maya had ever seen her. Judge Johnson, thank you for seeing me. Of course. Please, sit down. And it's just Maya when we're not in court. Rosalie sat folding her hands in her lap. I wanted to let you know personally before you heard it elsewhere. I've left the force. I'm sorry to hear that, Maya said. Your testimony was brave. The department needs more officers like you. Rosalie shook her head. That's just it. They don't want more officers like me. After I testified, things got difficult. Nothing they could be sued for, just the daily message that I wasn't one of them anymore. Maya nodded, understanding all too well. But that's not why I'm here, Rosalie continued. I've been accepted to law school. Your story, what you did with your experience, it inspired me. I want to make changes from the outside since I couldn't do it from within. Maya smiled, genuinely moved. That's wonderful news. Law school is challenging, but if you bring the same courage you showed in that courtroom, you'll do fine. I was hoping. Rosalie hesitated. The program offers a mentorship component. I was wondering if you might consider being my mentor. I'd be honored, Maya said without hesitation. After Rosalie left, Maya stood at her window looking out at the city below. So much had changed in a year, not just for her, but for the community. The police department, under pressure from the new Civilian Oversight Board, had dismissed 3 more officers with patterns of misconduct. The Dignity First Legal Fund had already taken on 15 cases, winning or favorably settling 12 of them. There was still so much work to be done. Change came slowly, unevenly, often with resistance, but it did come. Maya's intercom buzzed. "Judge Johnson, court is ready to resume." "Thank you," she replied. "I'll be right there." She straightened her robe and touched her hair briefly, habit she'd developed, a small reminder of where she'd been and how far she'd come. Then she picked up her files and walked with measured steps toward her courtroom, where people waited for justice. As she took her seat on the bench, Maya gazed, out at the faces before her. Anxious defendants, determined attorneys, watchful bailiffs, curious observers. Each person carried their own story, their own struggles, their own understanding of what justice meant. Her job wasn't to rewrite their stories, but to ensure that in her courtroom, each story would be heard with equal attention, each person treated with equal dignity. It wasn't a perfect system, she knew that better than most, but it was one worth improving, one case at a time. "Court is in session," the bailiff announced. Maya nodded. "Let's begin."